a podcast to honor the gods.
This better come with a sacrifice.
Deus Ex Media.
Kann Capable acknowledges the Indigenous people on the land on which we record this podcast, the Turungurung people. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome to Content and Capable, where this week I have what is the equivalent of my boss on the podcast for what could be described as the equivalent of a performance review or just a really good chat between friends. Who knows? You'll have to listen to the episode to find out. I'm Sam, I'm your host, and joining me is Christina, the founder of Deus Ex Media. Hi, Christina.
I don't know if you can call me your boss if I don't pay you anything.
What was it? I just had, every now and then our boss calls us in individually for a meeting, and it's great because we all look at each other and go, we all immediately assume that something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And it's never, our boss has never ever called us in his office for something bad.
Really?
Ever. I think I've only been reprimanded once by him. And every other time it's been like an opportunity, or he wants to chat about a story that we're working on or something. Never. But we all always assume, because we're just so used to whenever the boss gets involved in anything, that it's a bad thing. We all just assume that something's gone wrong. I'm like, well, what did we do?
Yeah. It's like when someone tells you, hey, we need to talk later. It's like, that's why I try to be like, Sean, we need to talk later about our vacation plans.
Make it a good thing. So we don't procrastinate all our way through it. Oh, so great. Well, we're not here to talk about bosses, because I feel like we would all get in trouble for talking about bosses. It just seems like one of those things.
My boss is Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers. I love her so much.
I would love my boss to be Linda Belcher. It reminds me of a previous job I had where on Friday at 4:00 we would bring out wine and beer and
nice.
Have a beverage before we left work at 5
That's
on a Friday
wonderful.
afternoon.
I hope to one day be able to do that as well. That sounds like it's great for morale.
It was great for morale. It also meant that, like, I really looked forward to rocking up to work on a Friday.
Yeah. Now I work from home, so it's like, yeah, I can technically drink at work whenever I want to, but it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, and my equivalent to a Friday is like a Monday afternoon. So
yeah.
Me rocking up to the start of the week and having a beverage at 4:00 on a Monday afternoon seems mildly inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
I could definitely see myself tipsy, though, and kind of like walking out of the building and going, well, I gotta go home now.
When me and Grace and Mike and Haley used to all work together, when we were having really bad days, we'd go out to lunch and be like, should we get beers? And then we'd be like, I'll get one if you get one. Okay. All right. It's a bad day. Let's get beers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think a beer at lunch on a Friday is great.
That's exactly right.
Even a beer at lunch on a Wednesday,
dude,
if needed.
My dad, when I was a kid, my dad was my age, and he was a stockbroker who did a lot of work in New York, and he traveled a lot. And that man would have, I think, several beers every day at lunch, because that was just kind of like the culture, you know? I can't imagine that.
I'm a cheap drunk, so that makes me kind of sad. Like, I wish I could have like 3 or 4 beers at lunch every day.
That's so many beers, dude. It's way too many.
Yeah. I think my mother would be disappointed with me if she found out that I drank 3 or 4 beers at lunch every day. And I think that hurts more than anything else.
Yeah.
So we're not here to talk about beer or alcohol or bosses. But we talked about it anyways. You're welcome. Free content. This whole podcast is free, but there's a paywall now. You've got to pay.
If you want the on-topic stuff, you got to pay for it.
We're here to talk about sociolinguistics, Christina. You suggested this one for the uninitiated and the man who was supposed to do research and didn't. What is sociolinguistics?
So I want to start by saying that I am not a leading professional in the subject matter of sociolinguistics. Oh my God, I can't even say it. But it is what I studied in college. It's what I have my degree in. I mean, it's like I have an English degree and then you like have to pick a concentration. So my concentration was in linguistics. Sociolinguistics is like pretty much looking at it from like a usage perspective instead of like a grammar perspective. It's like sociology plus linguistics. So it's like the study of people intersected with the study of language. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff at that intersection because as humans, we not only shape language, but language also shapes us. That's why there's so much discourse like on the internet about among professionals about like the kind of language that we should use to talk about certain subjects. And that's because language really does matter. And that's why like certain words with really negative histories or really negative connotations are sort of being phased out of the language because we're really starting to, I think, talk about sociolinguistics as a society more, even if that's not what we're calling it. But like anytime anyone is like, here's some good like starter language to help you talk to like your friend who's going through a gender transition or like stuff like that. Like all of that really comes down to like sociolinguistics. So it's one of my hyperfixations. I have a bachelor's degree in the subject matter. I don't do it for a living, but damn, I love it so much. And I think I do my best to incorporate it where it's appropriate into my work at Wildling and stuff, because it's one of those things that is important like everywhere all the time, you know?
I think it also like really helps, especially within a publishing context, makes writing a little bit more timeless and a little bit more easy to read by a wider variety of people. We've definitely had this conversation on the Deus Ex Media Discord server about like some of the wild differences between the way each of us speak from each different culture.
Yeah.
You know, we've got people from the UK and the States, from the north and the south and the west of the States, plus Canada.
We
Australia.
We Southerners have like the whole Discord server saying y'all now. Like we got y'all in Norway, we got y'all in Australia, we got y'all in the UK. We're doing it.
We're doing it. I love it. I think y'all is probably one of the best words I've ever learned.
It's great.
Since becoming an adult.
It's amazing. It does so much work. Sometimes I'll send a text message that's like one sentence long and I've used the word y'all 3 times.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, it is. It's a fascinating aspect to, and you know, I write, you write. A lot of us do writing for a living, and being able to understand how we communicate and how we can better communicate, I think. And this is where I like kind of wish I did like something like sociolinguistics at university, because it's like, oh, I really wish I could have, instead of my boring journalism degree, which was often frustrating, other than the fact that it got me where I am today. So
Well, the cool thing about linguistics is that the 2 career paths, if you really want to pursue linguistics, your 2 career options are you're going to teach linguistics or you're going to work for the FBI. And those are your 2 options. So that's why I was like looking at both those options. My mom was like, please, sweetie, please. The FBI, I know they don't like you to smoke pot when you work for the FBI, but that would be such a wonderful job for you. And I'm like, Mom, you don't understand the kind of things that they would find in one of my hair samples, okay? Like, you don't understand. I can't go work for the FBI. I went to a shitty public university. I've done so many drugs. Please.
I've spent too much time in court to like even feel comfortable driving at the moment. Like, it's one of those things. Just like, please, law enforcement's too scary.
It's too scary.
It's too scary. Even the normal people are really too scary. I had a phone call with a police officer yesterday, and I was just speaking to him. He's been nominated for an award. It was great. And I was like, oh, I just need like a little bit of about you and things for this, you know, award nomination you've gotten. What do you think about being nominated? And the way he spoke back to me, and I love this guy. This guy is like really lovely. But I was like, oh, this is a man of authority. Oh, like this is still mildly terrifying. Help. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel you.
For like a practical application, I know we talked about the FBI or teaching sociolinguistics.
Yeah.
But like within your writing day to day, what does applying what you've been taught look like?
Yeah, I think that a really big, a good starting point for talking about sociolinguistics is Dr. Rosina Lippi-Green. She created this list that she calls the linguistic facts of life. I think it's like 5 rules, or like rules is a really strong word. Linguistics doesn't like rules. We just like to describe things as we see them. So she wrote down some stuff about language that I think is a really good starting point. And one of her linguistic facts of life is that writing and speech are fundamentally, historically, they are different things completely. A lot of people, especially, I'm sure you've seen this on the internet, like to police the way that other people write. And if you aren't able to write well in a way that is grammatically correct, then other people will often judge you for that. When in reality, writing is a skill that we all learn, much like math or doing the dishes. Like, we're not born knowing how to write at all. Whereas we are born, most of us are born with this biological imperative to like seek speech. And so when you're a kid, you're looking for speech, and that's how you build your ability to speak. And even children in isolation, kids who are raised alone in abusive situations or like lost in the woods or whatever, those kids will still form language even when they're not exposed to an existing language. So I think that's like a really good starting point for me, and all the work that I do is always remembering that writing is a skill and people have different skill levels, and it's not helpful or constructive to ever judge anyone. And I think that helps me a lot with my work with authors at Wildling. And as well as like in my personal life, like people sometimes joke about like, oh, you must be a real like grammar Nazi. And I'm like, I only really correct people when I think it's funny or when I think they would like genuinely want to know. Like, I correct the Wildlings all day long because they work with me making books. You better believe I'm going to correct you. But like, it's just not helpful to judge anyone for the way they write or speak, honestly. That's like not judging people for how they speak is totally different from not judging people for how they write. But basically just don't judge people. And like, language is so fun and interesting. Like, don't be grumpy about it.
It's a very fascinating thing that I think I learned quite abruptly. And it's a weird way to describe it, abruptly. But moving from radio spoken word through to text in a newspaper, there were like 5 realizations that kind of hit me all at once within about a week of starting full-time working at a newspaper. And those things were like, obviously the difference between speech and writing is completely different, but also different contexts within writing. So a newspaper is supposed to be very easily read. It's supposed to be, I think, theoretically, someone said it's supposed to be grade 10 level. You're supposed to be able to understand completely everything in it. Okay. But, still all the way down to like a 8th grade level, made like mostly comprehensible. And then it's all about, it's not necessarily about grammar or structure, but it's about readability and understanding. And but also then at the same time we have this weird obsession with spelling, because as soon as you make a mistake and it goes into print, which I did this week,
been there, buddy.
Everyone can see it. I forget what the spelling error was, but it was plenty instead of plenty.
Plenty. Girl, your tree outside is looking really planty, dude.
Yeah, I had written it on Monday. It was like my 15th caption I had written for an image. Okay. That's the other thing. Like, you're writing like, and I think that this is, as compared to like writing a book newspaper, you're writing like a couple of thousand words each week, but then you're also editing it, proofing other people's work,
Yeah.
writing captions, which is like completely different style. And then also being weirdly obsessive about images and advertising and, you know, everything else that kind of goes along in head. So you almost like put together a whole book a week, and it's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And, you know, the book arrived yesterday, and now all of our hard work for the last week's laid out in front of us, mistakes and all.
Oh my god, that's so scary.
But yeah, you know, and it's fascinating because, like, writing a newspaper, I always told everyone that I sucked at English. Through high school, I really struggled to write, especially within the context of what high school English demanded. And I rocked up to my journalism course going, I just really hope that the writing is, like, easy and I can kind of, you know, get through it barely. And it was so much easier than I thought it was going to be because it's so formulaic as well.
Totally.
Whereas,
It's
you know,
it's literally just a set of rules. It's like learning how to play soccer. It's just a set of rules. And like some people don't know all the rules. Like I'm watching Ted Lasso and I'm like, what are they talking about? But I know probably more grammar rules than Ted Lasso. So, but linguistics really, when it comes down to it, I know the first thing I said about linguistics was about how like writing is different from talking, but like linguistics is really, it's not about writing at all. It's about how people speak to each other. Like that's kind of the point of that rule is like, don't even worry about writing right now because it's different. It's different from speech. And like human speech is so freaking cool. Like a lot of people talk about how like it's one of the things that like humans have is like our ability to like know that we are sentient, to like know that we have a future, our ability to like use complex tools, and like our ability to speak complex language. And so like linguistics basically, when it comes down to it, is looking at the way that people are already speaking. Loud motorcycle. And being like, what are they doing? And like, what are the patterns of what they're doing? And like, why? And at no point are linguists like, and how should they do it to be right? No, we don't care about how should they do it to be right. We care about what is literally happening and what does that tell us about the way that the world is moving.
And I suppose that kind of goes against, and I think this is where like a lot of people who are very obsessive with grammar and things, it goes against that. It's like, you know, the language changes. We aren't going to use grammar the same way. Like the art of the semicolon and the colon and the en dash and the em dash have kind of like fallen out of vogue. And like there are weird things that like some people use that, you know, some people will understand, but others just have no idea what's going on or how that rule's supposed to be applied. And it's because it's changed. We don't need to use them anymore.
Totally. The way people speaks constantly. Wait. The way people speak changes constantly. I switched those words around. Like, you listen to Shakespeare's English, it's really hard. That is not at all the way that we speak. I mean, even reading like Jane Austen, which is only like a couple hundred years ago, it's like, we just simply don't speak like this anymore. And it's like, yes, you can find meaning because it's still the same language. But it's just, it shouldn't surprise anyone when language changes because that's what it's always done. Like English wasn't here from the beginning. Like English came from somewhere, from German to be exact. So
and let's be honest, German doesn't all make sense.
Yeah, so that's another part of linguistics is like the history of language, which is a class I took the history of the English language in college, and that was one of the boringest, coolest classes I ever took because it was so dry. Oh my god! But it was so interesting to learn how English got to be the way it is today. Like, so many languages have such cool histories, but I think English in particular is really unique. The way that it moved onto the British Isles, the way that so many different peoples came and like conquered those English-speaking peoples and like turned English into this other new thing. And then since then, the way that English has been so globalized, English is it's a very cool language. We can really do so much with it.
It's fascinating because English is so globalized, the differences between, and I complain about this daily because my computer is set on American English and I write in Australian English, but like the differences between different dialects basically of English is not quite that, but it's very similar. It's like, and you know, it's spelling changes, but it's also phrasing and structural changes, or you know, the way things are spelt the differently. Like Americans use the letter Z way more often than we do here in Australia.
Yeah.
Like
Or like one
organisation
thing,
has an S in it. We will use an S.
One thing that I noticed when we first became friends that I really like, I think it's like a very cute thing that you guys do in Australian English, is what you say you chat to someone, but here in the US we say we chat with someone. And so
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing where it's like, that's the fun. It means the same thing. It's a fun, cute little different way to say it.
To think that that word also was developed in the trenches of World War One, and you know, everyone was the same, but everyone took slightly different grammar structure out of it and took it back to their home country,
Yeah.
and now it's developed beyond. And within the last 100 years, it's kind of amazing to see.
Yeah, or like
as well.
wasn't the word okay from one of the world wars? It meant like all clear.
Yeah, I think so as well, yeah. And the way that we spell it differently as well, you got the OK literal and OKAY as well, and you see both of them used. I don't know where it separates, but yeah.
And then there's when when I send my dad a meme and he responds and he just says K. And it's like, thanks.
No, we're still at the your mum jokes in our family group chat, so...
That's probably a really chaotic group chat.
Sometimes it hurts my brain. Because you've got everyone from 14 up in the same group chat. And it's the chat, I don't know why it's called this, but it's called Big Meme. So, you know, theoretically we're supposed to be sharing memes on it. But, you know, it also ends up being the only place we can all communicate to each other because the children have very limiting phone plans. They're like, well, as soon as we're connected to the internet, there's no point, you know, sending a text message when I can, you know, send a normal message to someone. Anyway, but yeah, very fascinating. A mess of a group chat. So many people misunderstanding so many other people. My poor mother, I think, probably holds her breath every time she sees a message from there. Because it could be anything from your mum's cold, like what my brother said yesterday, or I need help with this.
I love that, though. That's very, very nice that you guys have a little family chat. But yeah, so, and I was just thinking about the phrase like big dick energy as well. It has so much meaning now, but 200 years ago, somebody would have been like, you mean tall Richard? Yeah, his energy's a little weird today.
I think, yeah, it's so fascinating, all the different changes. I don't know, we're in Pride Month at the moment, which feels like a really appropriate time to talk about sociolinguistics.
Yes.
In the way that we're changing how we talk about people and to people. What have been some of the, aside from the really obvious ones, what have been some of the interesting changes you've seen?
Really? I think that especially in the last like 10, 15 years, people have become... we've started to spread the message that the way you speak matters. And some people get it. Some people, we're still working on them getting it. Some people, like my mom, are like, I don't know the right thing to say. You have to explain it to me. And it's like, that's fair. Like, I really think that a great example of, I think one of the biggest changes that's happened in English in the last maybe like, I'm saying it. This is one of the biggest changes to like happen to American English is the introduction of the concept of asking for someone's pronouns before you start speaking to them. Because historically, English is not a gendered language the way that Spanish, for example, is a gendered language. Its words end with an A or an O a lot of the time to signal what gender that word is, or even if it doesn't end with an A or an O, it is gendered. Like all of their nouns are gendered. That's something that we don't have at all in English, except with a very few rare exceptions that are all borrowed from other languages. But English does have gendered pronouns, whereas some languages like Farsi, as far as I know, doesn't have gendered pronouns. Because my stepdad is a native Farsi speaker, and he still has a hard time with he and she, because he wasn't, when he was first learning language, the difference between he and she was meaningless. They didn't have that. So I think that is like a great example of one way that we are all using sociolinguistics to shape our world, kind of, and be like, this is how we want the future to be. And like, I know I said earlier that like linguistics is about talking about how people are talking. Oh my God, that sounded so stupid. Linguistics are about the way people are talking. We're not here to say, you should do it this way, you should do it this way. Just like anything else, it's different when it comes to human rights, right? You should respect someone's pronouns. Like, I'm here to say that. You don't really necessarily have to like pronounce every other word correctly in that sentence, or like you don't necessarily have to say what you're saying to that person the way that I would say it, but you do need to respect people and their identities.
Yeah, it is a very fascinating part. And I remember when I was learning, Japanese doesn't necessarily have gendered words, but theirs is mostly gender neutral. But German does. And when I was learning German in middle school, it was very fascinating. And it was very hard to get my head around, okay, so this object identifies as male. And it was a very hard thing to kind of go. And of course, over the years, it's been a lot easier for me to kind of go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Not that I know German at all anymore, other than how to say I'm a table. But, you know, it's like, but within my English context, I'm able to... I just remember the time I learned how to say I am a table. Oh, no.
What context do you need that for?
You didn't need it. It was a mistake. They were doing like possessive nouns and sentences in the German class that you could take beyond the required German you had to learn in middle school. And one of the only guy in the class at the time, he said, "Ich bin ein Tisch," which means I am a table. And so the whole year level found out about it, and a whole year level used that sentence for a very long time, and it got ingrained into our family. Often it's a response to when someone calls your name. You go like Sam, and I go, "Ich bin ein Tisch," because we just, I don't know, we're weird like that. Yeah, learning that words could be gendered, and then like using them appropriately based on the context or based on what, you know, people would prefer, was a very fascinating part of my late childhood, early adulthood, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, but speakers of German or of Spanish, they do it so organically, the same way that like, you know how in English you say like, I'll have a banana, but you say I'll have an apple, and an are technically the same word. Linguistically, they are technically the same word because they're doing the exact same job. One of them is just slightly altered to sound better when you say it next to a word that starts with a vowel. And so like we never think about that because we don't have to. So it's just really interesting the way that certain people, the way that people get their first language really is stuck in their brain. And that's why you don't really... When you learn other languages, it's like always in the context of what you already know. And also like on top of that, like because I was a native English speaker, I didn't really understand like very advanced grammatical concepts because it came so naturally to me. It really took me getting to extremely advanced Spanish classes before I started truly understanding advanced English grammar, because it was being taught to me in this like new way. And then I was able to look back at English and be like, oh shit, this is what's happening there. I didn't even notice.
we always joked that Japanese taught us more about English grammar than our English classes ever did, because you would learn about the different particles and, you know, bits and pieces, and it's like you just never learnt that because that kind of advanced linguistics is already ingrained in your learning of the language through your primary school years before before you have to start using it in advanced applications in, you know, essays or something. You know, it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think it is very interesting the way that children learn language. Somehow, you know, you don't need any of that theory behind it, but a lot of the time when adults learn a language, they do take a lot of that structural grammar because it really does help them ground the language in something that they already know.
Yeah. And also because when children get to be, 8 to 10 months old or whatever, their brains change, and their brains are now that they're like, okay, I understand that this is mommy and this is daddy, or this is my other mommy, or this is my grandma, or like whatever. And I live in this house. They have to get those things out of the way. And once they're like, okay, I am a person who lives in this house with my guardians, then their brains are like, okay,
yeah,
let's figure out what's going on here. And their brains literally just like open up to language. And that's why once your kid starts acquiring language, you need to really watch the way you speak in front of them, because they are soaking that all in.
All of it. Like the bad habits, the lisps, the fact that, you know, you'll stammer 5 times before you speak.
Yeah, like Brooke's baby, Freya, is, I think, 8 or 9 months now. And I was like, you need to tell me, when she starts acquiring language, because we are always like, oh my God, what a fat, perfect baby. And like, once your daughter starts learning how to talk, you have to stop calling her fat, but she is. Babies are supposed to be fat.
Their bodies are structurally different from like us as adults.
Yeah, and you know
the baby's body.
And you know that if Freya heard somebody swear and saw the reaction it got, she would be all over that.
I cannot wait for the phase where I hear Brooke complaining that Freya learned how to swear in front of you all, and then realize that you guys absolutely love her and stop swearing.
I'm a big proponent of teach kids how to swear and when to swear.
When to swear, yeah. Good context is key.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of children forget. Or adults as well. Their language. It's like, be careful of what you say in front of the different people.
Yeah, I did shout cunnilingus in a restaurant yesterday, and the people I was with were very scandalized, and I was like, it's just a word. If there's a kid here, they don't know what the fuck cunnilingus means, and they're not going to remember it.
Well, and this is the thing, right? Like, when you... The taking offense to, like, certain words, you're only offended if the context or what you think it means is a bad thing. Like, we attach so much psychological meaning to these words.
Yeah.
And then, all of a sudden we're all up in arms because you used the word fuck in front of your parents.
That's a really big part of linguistics as well, is looking at like taboo language and what makes it taboo. A lot of it goes back to Bible shit, I'll tell you. A lot of it goes back to Christianity shit. But it really, once you start thinking about taboo language, it sort of falls apart, Like it really... It's only what we put into a word. Like, we all agree that a word is bad, so it's bad, but it's like, it's just a combination of letters, and truly, like, you can be so vicious. Like, if I was like, Sam, honestly, you're a really bad friend, and you make me feel disrespected, and when I look at you, I feel sad, and like, that kind of... You don't have to swear to like hurt somebody's feelings. So the notion of bad words is like linguistically unsound, right? Like, there are not bad words in linguistics. We call it taboo language because taboo implies that it's like a social construct and not inherent to the language.
Yeah, and it... Oh, sorry. The yawns are coming thick and fast this morning. Normally I'm really good at stopping them. But, it is, and it is very fascinating, especially as we go to change, the way we speak about people, and this is where I get very frustrated and at the United States. And it's not necessarily everyone, but their refusal to move past some aspects of their language that has like real damaging connotations and histories. Like, I don't necessarily feel comfortable using the word black in a sentence, like, other than to describe an object. Like, it's not, to me, because of the connotated history of it, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use person of colour, or here in Australia, because our Indigenous population is different. And obviously, I think you guys use black in terms of African Americans. We don't. We talk about black in terms of Indigenous culture. The word black is actually spelt different when it comes to being talked about in Indigenous culture. And I don't feel like, as a white person, I should be using that word in that context, because that's about their culture and their identity, and it's very important to them. So I often use person of colour or Indigenous or Aboriginal when the context is okay, because that one's still a hot topic as well. But yeah, it's very fascinating how, like, there are some quite bad words, and the way that they've been either repurposed or rethought about, or continue to use in other aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's linguists who specialize in all sorts of things. There's definitely linguists, black linguists, linguists of color, who know like way more about the history of like the usage of words to referring to groups that they identify with, and like especially like the notion of like taking back words. Like, one that I can speak for, taking back words, is the word bitch, which is like a derogatory word for women. But like, no, it is not. That word belongs to me now, and like all of these bitches, they're my bitches. And that means that I fiercely love and protect them. And so like, that's something that a lot of marginalized communities have started to do. Like, also the word queer used to be used kind of like a slur, and now, I mean, it started out, as I'm sure everyone knows, as a very unremarkable word to describe something being weird, like just like like in The Hobbit, there's a chapter called Queer Lodgings, I think. And then it developed to mean like gay in like a bad way, because like it has that connotation of like otherness. That's weird. That's queer. But now the queers are like, fuck yeah, we are. And so they're really taking back that word, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And as I said, the word black, but also, other things. Also just like the redefinition of words, things like the word slay, which is used quite a lot in my friend circles. Slay was a very normal word before it became in the cultural zeitgeist of my generation. Like, that's definitely one of those ones that I sit there and I go,
and
that happened quickly.
A word like slay comes from black queer culture. And a lot of our slang comes from black culture, queer culture, youth culture. These like more marginalized groups are the ones who are out here playing with language and sort of pushing it to its boundaries. And so that's why like resisting language change is in a way resisting like a real comprehensive understanding of the way that different marginalized groups are coming together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also, I had a very fascinating discussion about, especially the word slay. So, full context, and I can't believe I'm saying this in public because I haven't spoken about it in months. About 6 months ago, I had a couple of interns when I was at the radio station.
Oh, I forgot about this.
They love using the word slay, except at one point, someone pulled them, one of the hosts of one of the shows pulled them aside and said, you can't use the word slay. It's actually, it's, and as you said, it comes from, black queer culture. It's their word. You can't use it. And they came back up to me and they weren't upset at all. They thought it was kind of weird that someone had pulled them aside and said, you can't use this word. And so we had a discussion about it as journalists, and we sat there, and I think we all came to the decision that, like, while this word has come from somewhere, we need to respect its history. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we can't use the word or add our own meaning, our own definition, and our own usage of the word.
Absolutely.
Within our own context.
Yeah, and words come from everywhere. Like, we say sushi. I mean, that's obviously a Japanese food. That's a horrible example. But, like, today I was talking about the word chaise longue, which my dumb American brain is like chase lounge. But it's like, it's chaise longue.
Yeah.
I think that's how English speakers pronounce it, even though it's a French word. I've heard several different English speakers pronounce it like chaise longue, or like, I'm not coming up with good examples because I can never come up with good examples on the spot, but like all words come from somewhere and we can normalize them. But at the same time, it's important to think about a word like slay and be like, does this apply to me? And like, first of all, are you an ally to the group of people who created this word? That's a great step, because if you hate queer people, if you hate black people, you are not allowed to use the word slay, baby. But if you know where the word comes from, you're doing something, any bitch can slay, like come out in a hot dress or like crush that article you're writing, like slay, bitch. It means like... It's like, it's the same thing as like back, I don't think people say this anymore, but at some point in my life, people would be like, you're killing it. No, I think people still say that.
Yeah.
And it's like, or like crushed it, it's like this, we're all kind of saying the same thing, just in new ways.
And, in new ways that open up different grammatical features in our writing and speaking as well. Like, the word slay is not the greatest example for this, but I've definitely been introduced to new words and then introduced to basically new grammar that opens up a world of new grammar that I can use to say something in a different way. And it's always very fascinating because you sit there and you go, oh, so I can write it this way instead of the way I've always written it.
Yeah.
And, with this new word, I can insert it in there and it makes the whole sentence make sense.
Yeah. When I grew up, I lived just outside of Washington, D.C. So even though Virginia is in the South, where I grew up wasn't really the South. It was D.C. It was the nation's capital, where people talk like they're from the nation's capital, whatever. When I went to college down in the South, though, I picked up the usage of the word ain't, which a lot of people will tell you that ain't is fake. It's not good. It's not correct grammar. Like, ain't doesn't work.
Yeah.
But like the word ain't literally works. Like, it literally serves a purpose. It has a system. Like, you can only use it in certain ways. Just like any other grammar. Like, that's the real thing when it comes to grammar, is that it's like a pattern that people can like fall into, they can follow. And like, if you're just saying like bullshit all willy-nilly, like that's not a language, that's gibberish. But if you're using a phrase like ain't, like that, there's nobody, the people who are correcting you for using that know what you're saying. That's what linguistics really like comes down to, is like, you are correct if other people can understand what you're saying. Like, you don't have to say it in some special way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is where a lot of people who don't necessarily understand, the intricacies of how linguistics works and the impact of sociolinguistics, misunderstand the point of language and misunderstand, the use that language has. Because you're sitting there going, well, it makes sense. And I think this is where radio kind of really opened it up for me, because I was like, with writing, I always felt really limited. But when I spoke, I could experiment with a different way of saying things. And if it didn't come across right, I could just move on and try a different way of saying it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you write something and it doesn't work. You're like, well, I'm just going to go back to the same way I've said it my whole entire life.
Yeah. And that's a great, there's so many differences between writing and talking. And like, one of them is that really ephemeral nature of talking. You can keep sort of working it out. And if you're like speaking to someone and you can see that they're not understanding you, you can like say it in a different way. You can say it again, but clearer. Like, you can really work with speech a lot more than you can work with writing.
Yeah, and I think this is where, like, for me especially, I'm I haven't seen it much in my generation because my generation loves to text, but I am more than happy to pick up a phone and speak to someone verbally to make sure that there is no doubt in what I'm trying to communicate, because by listening to someone you understand the context in which they're speaking and what they're saying, rather than if I write an email, it's like this could be taken a completely different way, especially for more sensitive and a higher stakes communication as well.
Yeah.
I think that's why, the generations above us often do prefer to pick up the phone and ring someone majority of the time, because it just avoids any doubt in what, we're trying to communicate.
I think that on the flip side, that's because they were not raised with phone literacy and don't know how to communicate themselves as effectively in writing. Because I feel like my tone is usually pretty clear over text message.
I would argue that the rest of Gen Z below about 2005 really don't have a good phone literacy either. It's one of those weird phenomenons where our period of time, we really were taught how to use a phone. Like, I vividly remember Dad telling us to go pick up the phone and teaching us how to answer the home phone. We don't have a home phone anymore.
Oh, yeah. I definitely have phone etiquette. This is she. Who's calling?
Yeah.
May I take a message?
Whereas, I ring my younger siblings and they'll go, hey. And I'm like, I don't even know whether you've just made a random noise or, I can't tell whether you've consciously picked up the phone or not. It's like, am I speaking to the right person? Or, when my siblings pick up, other than my brothers who are immediately underneath me because we're all pretty clear, we all, I will say, oh, hi, Thomas, or something like that, rather than going, oh, hey, or what do you want? That's the second sentence. It's not the first sentence. Where's the greeting here in this conversation?
Well, and this job my current day job is the first job I've ever had in my life where I didn't have to answer the phone. Like, phone is an important skill.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is such an important skill. And being able to answer the phone in a way that clearly identifies who you are, I think is really, really important. We don't give it enough credit.
Yeah.
When I pick up the phone and it's a number I don't recognize, it's, hello, this is Samuel O'Brien speaking.
That's cute. I don't personally answer the phone when I don't recognize the number.
Oh, yeah. I think part of my job is just answering
yes.
call I get. But, at the same time, I definitely, when I pick up the phone, the office phone, because we've got the landlines in the office, it's, Mansfield Korea, this is Sam speaking.
Oh my God, hold on. I got one for you. Thank you for calling Claire's. We're getting ready is half the fun. This is Christina. How can I direct your call?
Oh, that's so good. I love, and the commercial phone calls are always very fascinating, but you do kind of lose that art a little bit. I definitely noticed, even people my age from time to time struggle to, answer the phone in a way that is clear to the person on the other side immediately what's going on. You are, and phone technology is really weird because sorry, I'm ranting about phones.
It's all right. That's sociolinguistics, baby.
Phone technology is really weird because all of a sudden you're transported to another part of the country where there are who knows what's going on, and if you need to answer the phone and go, oh hey, I'm busy, or that needs to be communicated incredibly quickly, or what the vibe of the conversation is going to be, because you haven't seen that person's body language. You can't, you don't have any other cues as to what this conversation is going to be like, so you don't know how to adapt your language and your tone and stuff. Yeah,
totally. And I think that's why people, a lot of people have their phone voice, you know what I mean? Because you don't know what's going on the other end, so you need to be a little bit more neutral. And that kind of leads me into another thing that I would like to talk about. It's a linguistics concept that I feel like a lot of people have heard about by now, especially the listeners of our podcast, aka liberal youths. But code switching, right? Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
Really?
Ooh.
Okay, it might be something that we
No.
talk. It really might be something that we talk about more here in America because we have so many different kinds of people, and we talk about it a lot, specifically when it comes to like African American vernacular English. But basically, code switching is the ability to turn on different kinds of voices. And so, like this voice that I'm using right now is not the same voice that I use when it's just me and Haley smoking weed on the couch watching a movie. Like I'm not like monologuing to her like this. I'm actually not a great example of code switching because I'm the kind of person who is like always the same. I just figured out how to not swear on How Do I Book. But for example, if you've seen the movie Black Klansman, have you seen that one, Sam?
No, I haven't, but go ahead with the example.
It's a great movie, and I do really recommend it. But the one of the big plot points is the main character is a black man who works. Oh, he's a cop. I'm like, what does he do? He's on the phone. No, he's a cop, and he he like infiltrates the KKK by calling them and using his white voice, right? So he switches from African American Vernacular English, which is a really broad African American Vernacular English, AAVE. The very outdated word for it is Ebonics. Like it's really this umbrella term for the way that America's really vibrant and populous black communities talk differently from their white or differently colored counterparts, basically. And so in the movie, the main character is talking in African American vernacular English to his colleagues, to his girlfriend, people he feels safe with. And then he gets on the phone to infiltrate the KKK. I swear it's a really good, believable movie. It sounds really silly, but he puts on his white voice and he calls it his white voice, you know? And that's like an example of code switching. And people do it all the time. Like everyone does code switching. But it's specifically important when it comes to at least where I live in the South of the United States. It really comes into play when we're talking about Black people being forced to speak differently from how is natural to them because of this like fake notion of the right way to speak. And like, I'll say it right here, like there is no right way to speak. People are like, oh, you speak with like standard English. And like, if anyone in this country spoke with standard English, it would be me because I was raised outside the nation's capital. But like, I still have a Southern accent. Like I still talk like a girl with like upspeak at the end of my sentences. Like the phrase like a girl is not good, but that's like a traditionally like feminine trait is that you learn a little bit to speak a little bit differently. And so like, where was I going with this rant? There is no such thing as standard English. Like what the fuck is standard? You're just going to like pick a spot on a map of a country as big as ours and be like, that's standard. Bro, you can like tell the difference between someone who lives in Washington, D.C. and someone who lives in Los Angeles and someone who lives in New York and someone who lives in Houston. And those are all really important places in America, much like all of the rest of America, except for certain parts of Alabama. And like, you can't just say like one of them is better. Like Christina talks best because she went to school in freaking Fairfax County. Sorry, I'm on a soapbox right now.
No, but it is, and it's one of those things. I think there's a Tom Scott video about this. He studied linguistics as well, except now he just makes educational YouTube videos for a living.
Nice.
Wow, what a great pipeline, linguistics and educational YouTube. Yeah. But he talks about the lost English accents. So, you know, all the sub-accents within England. You could tell what town you were from in England because they were, especially for so long, so quite insular. You didn't move from town to town very quickly. So every town, you know, had their own accent. And they're slowly dying out, but you can tell when someone's from the north, the Midlands, or the south. Totally. Whether they're from London, even I can tell that, or out in the west. Yeah, and it's a fascinating aspect because not only does the accent change, but as you said, the structural way you speak changes. And Indigenous people here in Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, they've all got different languages, but the way in which they all communicate is very similar, at least in my eyes. I'm a white person. I can't really tell the difference, but when I see Indigenous people jump up and communicate about stuff, the way that they speak is very similar. They are, it's a little bit more gruff. It's a little bit more... There's not a huge amount of grammatical, and I won't talk about the specifics, but it is a very interesting way of being of communicating, and it's different. It's different, and for such a long time, white people in our country, white people in the States, white people everywhere, tried to smash out different ways of communicating to standardize it. I think it's probably one of the worst things we ever did was let's standardize everything.
I think we're still doing it.
In that.
I think we're still doing it. And that's a really good point, Sam, is that language is also a tool of colonization. English, the way that we know English today is a result of colonization, the colonization of the British Isles by Rome, and then some less formal, not colonizing, just cool Viking invasions and a little bit of French. But, the UK and other countries like America have turned around and made English like a weapon in certain places by taking it. America is also one of those places where English has been used as a weapon, because if you are, as a colonizer, do things like require people to speak English in school to get an education, require people to speak English in their workplaces to earn a living, you are giving less opportunity for the native languages there to thrive. And that is how languages die out. That is literally how languages die out. And honestly, thousands of languages are dying out. No, I don't know a number in a specific amount of time, but languages are dying out at an ever increasing rate, and it's because of globalization and colonization, baby.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We're in a mad rush here in Australia at the moment to try to preserve Indigenous languages that are left.
Yeah.
Because we wipe them out so hard that we are, at one point, there were no Indigenous people that lived on the island of Tasmania at all. Just none whatsoever. We wiped out that whole Indigenous population there.
Oh my God.
Including their practices, their ecological... And this is the other thing, we're talking about linguistics now and colonization of linguistics, but also our colonization of religion and our colonization of weather. Weather is not the same here in Australia. We operate on a completely different system. We shouldn't be thinking about it in terms of winter, spring, summer, autumn. Mm-hmm. We should be thinking about it as the wet and the dry and the cold and the hot, rather than, because those have more impact on our day-to-day lives rather than... And religion as well. I've been speaking to a Catholic priest here locally, and he and I are very adamant that, the Catholic Church made a step backwards when they decided to stop adapting culture beyond the pagans, because what they were doing was adapting the beliefs and traditions of the pagans into their faith. That's why Christmas is on the solstice, and that's why Easter is on the equinox, But, we didn't do that for Indigenous cultures. We didn't do it for people in Africa and the Middle East and in Asia. We didn't adapt the religion to that. And that's why, religion is now fundamentally failing, and a whole other variety of things are fundamentally failing because we just continue to standardize and not adapt.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you keep making rules that don't work for the people you're talking to, then no one's gonna be happy. And to sort of get back to the subject of sociolinguistics, when a kid says, "Can I go to the bathroom?" and the teacher says, "Do you mean may I?" That's not helping anybody. That's a fake ass rule. You're not thinking about the child you're speaking to who uses can as a word in this way constantly, because that is literally what the word means. and like you're being shitty about it because you're having a power trip. Literally anyone enforcing language on anyone else is a power trip. Unless, as I mentioned, it's funny. Sometimes it's really funny to point out when people do grammar wrong. And I would only do it to friends that I know would think it was funny too. Or if you work with them doing a language related job. Outside of that, there's just no fucking need. When people are like, don't start a sentence with a preposition. No. Don't start a sentence with a conjunction. No. Don't start a sentence with a... Wait, what the fuck is that kind of word?
Don't start a sentence, full stop. Don't
start. Don't end a sentence with a preposition, like blah, blah, blah. Like, that shit is fake. That shit is fake. And like, maybe... when you're writing, it's not fake, because maybe when you're writing, the grammar matters, but it doesn't always. Like if you're writing for yourself, if you're writing for like a partner or a friend, like it actually doesn't matter how you are writing as long as they can understand you. Someone like Sam or me who works on writing for the public, that's different because you want stuff to be standardized so that people from all walks of life have the best opportunity for comprehension of what you're trying to write. So that's why we have grammar.
And it's very... Yeah, and it's also fascinating, like, and as you mentioned, we write in standardized ways, but the local paper I write for here also has, like, slang and vernacular that isn't used in any other newspaper anywhere, because it is, you know, and it's always, for me, it's the big thing has been the geographical locators. We talk about the Northeast, and it's capital N, capital E, Northeast, because it is a location, or the high country.
Like the
different
American
ways to describe
South
where I
is
live.
like capital S.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And it's very fascinating because we use it, but like the capital city paper, a 2-hour drive away, won't use it at all, because they will talk about Mansfield in the state's northeast, not you know, the Northeast is doing this, or, you know, and it is very, you know, it's been so fascinating to see the way that, like, regardless of, you know, the standardization of journalism here in Australia as well, because ownership is so condensed, it makes me sick a little bit. But, you know, even with the standardizations we have, there are still changes within, you know, different aspects of our writing and our speaking.
Yeah,
and it's very interesting.
I think that just goes to show that even when you're writing, there's no real way to standardize, because there are so many different style guides. That's like the point of a style guide, is like it's a rule book for language. I'm looking at the Chicago Manual of Style, which is always in my field of vision. That's what American fiction book publishers use. But my friend Adrian, who works for a television broadcast news station, uses AP. Oh, no. I guess that was probably back when she was doing written journalism instead of broadcast journalism.
Still,
but, and like certain kinds of scholars use Chicago, or they use MLA. These are all different style guides that tell you what kind of grammar you're supposed to use, and they don't always agree with each other. And so, for example, in journalism, like their style guides don't recommend an Oxford comma, because every choice that journalism style guides make is in the name of saving space in a print newspaper. Whereas like in books, it's like, this bitch is already 300 pages long. Like, we need these commas because we're talking about really complex ideas, you know? And so like, even when you try to like standardize your writing, it still isn't right. Like as an editor, it's like I have a very, very, very comprehensive understanding of this one specific style guide. And if you told me to go write in some other industry, I would not necessarily know how to do that the best way.
And to get even more in the nitty-gritty, like journalists, then each company and each paper, like, so we have, the company I work for owns about 14 different newspapers. Each different paper writes slightly differently. And each different paper has its own additions to our company style guide. But then, you know, in 2 or 3 years' time, when I decide to move on from this job and move to another job somewhere else, they'll have a completely different style guide that I'll have to spend the first 2 months kind of getting my head around and learning. Yes, I've got the basics, but each company does something slightly differently. Like the ABC is going to be impartial, and then, it's other things. Like I work for a commercial company. We've got to keep sponsors in mind. So the way that we talk about things needs to be, in a certain way to appease sponsors. And it's just a whole complicated mess.
Yeah.
Very fascinating, though. The interesting solutions we all come up with to, like, get around, the rules or to try to, say what we want to say.
Oh, God, yeah. And,
we find it hard.
Wildling has a couple rules that Chicago says, and we don't agree with it. And so we have, like, a couple rules of our own that go against our recommended style guide. For example, people are still out here capitalizing internet like it's like the god. Like it's like the internet is such a normal thing. That shit needs to be lowercased. Or like email still being hyphenated in some dictionaries. It's like, girl, no. Don't hyphenate that shit anymore.
Yeah, it is so... It's such an interesting aspect. And the more I read, the more I learn, the more I go, I don't know everything here. And I think this is where, and the stereotype that, like, people who in the arts are way more progressive, I think that comes from the fact that, the way that we all communicate our practices it has to be open to change, because otherwise how are we supposed to, communicate between professions, between individuals, between, different aspects of the profession? That needs to be done. Like, and to do that, we've got to be really open-minded. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, for example, the Chicago Manual of Style only in the last 5 years has accepted the gender-neutral they, them, third-person pronoun. When I first became a book editor, that was not recommended by, like, my official style guide. And it's like, we had to make the choice as editors to be like, okay, we're going to be part of the solution instead of the problem, even if it means going against the rules. And now, because of that pressure and because of the fact that people are just already doing it this way, the Chicago Manual is like, okay, yeah, say they, them. That sounds great. Yeah. That was my idea. It's like, no, girl, it was not your idea.
No. And yeah, this is how we promote change. Like, if you want to see a change in the language, make the change and convince other people that, and obviously within reason, but, convince other people that we should be changing the meaning, the use, the grammatical style of words. Like, that's what language is. It's a living thing. We can't literally, go, this is how English was today. Like, English in 2020 is very different to English in 2000.
Yeah, a language that does not change is a dead language. That's a literal term. I'm sure you've all heard of, I think, one of the most famous dead languages, Latin. The reason that Latin has not changed in so long is because people are not actually using it in a real way. So if you want people to not change and to speak your language a certain way, you're really holding it back. For example, French has a French language academy who makes rules about what kind of language you're allowed to use in French and what kind you're not. And they're considered to be a real authority on the matter. And then other countries have, like, different sort of related things. Like, is it Iceland, I think, has, like, a name registry, and you're only allowed to name your baby something that's, like, already on the list. And there's, like,
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, and there's Christina is on the list. Thank you very much. There's just, like, all these different ways that nation states, like, try to police the language going on in their country. I'm sure that there's some nation states in conflicted areas that have outlawed languages spoken by real people in that area who are literally living there. I don't know of any off the top of my head because, like, geopolitics is, like, not really my forte, but, like, I'm on a rant again. Basically, just, like, language is so powerful, and, like, no individual or nation state should try to prescribe the way anyone else speaks, honestly, straight up.
Suck up, France.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you, Christina, so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a blast.
It's been so fun. I really feel like you asked me one single question and I just never stopped talking. Kind of like the K-pop episode.
We're in the ask one question, get an hour answer era of the podcast at this point. If anyone has any suggestions for guests who could talk for an hour based on one question, please just hit me up. I want to speak to more people like this. It is so much fun.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I know that we have like a couple subjects that we want to cover on your show in the next, 6 months to a year, but I could, anytime that you're running short on guests, I could come back to talk about just the linguistic facts of life, because we only talked about one and I could really talk about all of them for an hour. I also would love to talk to your listeners about the history of English, because it's really, really fascinating and cool. And I think it informs a lot. Like, I understand English so much better now that I know it's a garbage fire and exactly what way it's a garbage fire. So. Yeah.
Look, has there been anything you've been reading, watching, or listening to that you wanted to plug?
I've just been reading Wildling books that aren't out yet and playing Tears of the Kingdom. So I think my plug is...
No one's played Tears of the Kingdom yet.
Really? That's crazy. I feel like
No.
everyone... Crazy. See, that's the one small change that I've been working on in the last 6 months, is to stop saying crazy like that. I'm trying to replace crazy with bananas, wild, or bonkers, because it's a little bit kinder to people with mental health issues, where crazy has historically been a bit of a derogatory word. Okay, sorry. That's my final tangent. I would love to plug Wildling Press, because later this autumn we have 2 books coming out that I am so fucking excited for. We have Cursed Coven coming out by Cara Badalamenti in September, and we have Lavender Speculation by Jamie Zachariah coming out in October. And neither one of them is available for pre-sale yet, but they both will be in the next couple weeks here. So if you just follow Wildling, we will let you know when those books are available for pre-sale. We're not on Twitter anymore, but you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Ooh, LinkedIn. I've been spending way too much time on LinkedIn recently.
It's so grown of you.
I know. I literally, part of the reason why I didn't have an episode last week was because I hit 6 months at my job. I had my family over, and it was very, I don't know, by the end of it, I went skiing, so I was very sore and tired by the time I had to come back and try to figure out what I was going to do.
Yes. Oh my God.
But I did write a massive post on LinkedIn, which was like, I could do that in the car. I couldn't really record a podcast episode in the car. Although, maybe we do that. Maybe we take Content and Capable on the road at some point.
If you tell people ahead of time, it's cool.
Yeah, all the time. I'm going to plug a Harry Potter sequel.
Yes!
I was re-watching it for a bonus episode of the restricted section. Not that I'm going to be on that bonus episode. I'm just very excited about the bonus episode.
I am too.
But yeah, it's on YouTube. Go and check it out. It's a really fun romp. Back in the days of early 2000s. Actually, it's a really great time capsule of early 2000s pop culture. And I think that that's probably a really, really fun thing to kind of look back on and back at, what we thought and what we said back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of the jokes. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Christina, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Sam. It is always such a pleasure to be here. I love podcasts where it's just talking to your friend like you would normally.
Yeah. Not going through some sort of cursed book or something. Content and Capable was recorded, edited, and produced by Samuel O'Brien. You can follow the podcast at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram, and you can find it on Facebook. You can also send an email through to contentandcapablepod@gmail.com with any of your thoughts, queries, or concerns. The best way to support the podcast is to leave a review on your preferred podcatcher so more people can hear the podcast. The art was done by Opia, and the music was written, edited, and produced by Jason Hilton. Content and Capable is proud to be a part of the Deus Ex Media Network, where you can find a podcast for any of your nerdy interests.
This season on Of the Eldest Gods,
we make our way through the maze of
Labyrinth,
Yeah, Labyrinth, whatever. And we tell you all about the next book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series.
And explain the myth context as we go along.
So, the whole stuck in a maze thing is just a gimmick for this book, right?
Yeah, sure, Ray.
Hey, Charlie! Where the fuck are we?
Only you can save us from the labyrinth by listening to our podcast.
Help!
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. Don't forget to rate and review, and we'll see you next week for another episode.
Deus Ex Media.